Civilization promised us freedom from hunger, from cold, from the brute struggle to survive. But now that we've built that fortress, we're discovering a terrifying truth. The enemy we locked out may have been the only thing keeping us sane. Think about it. For almost all of human history, survival consumed every waking hour. Dawn to dusk, people labored just to eat, just to keep their children alive. There were no weekends, no paid holidays, no concept of leisure as we know it. If you weren't working, you were probably sick, or you were dead. Leisure was a fantasy, reserved for the very few. Then came the industrial age. Machines took over the grunt work. Factories pulled people from farms into cities. And suddenly, for the first time, the working class had scheduled hours of free time. Evenings off. A half-day Saturday. Eventually, the weekend was born. A leisure revolution. Sounds like paradisey, doesn't it? But here's the question civilization forces on us now. What are we free for? We fought so hard for freedom from toil, but we never asked what we would do with the space we carved out. And now, that empty space is consuming us. We have more leisure than any generation in history. More time to ourselves than kings and queens could have imagined a few centuries ago. Yet mental illness is soaring. Depression, anxiety, a vague sense of meaninglessness. It's everywhere. The screens glow, the couches are soft, and an invisible epidemic of emptiness is hollowing us out from the inside. Most people never ask the question. They just sink into the current. They assume free time is for resting, for consuming, and so their lives take on a shape that the philosopher Richard Taylor described with brutal clarity. He said the average person is astonishingly limited. Day after day, they fill the hours with idle gazing, at games, at television, at whatever passes by. They chatter about nothing, who went where, what the weather's doing. Things forgotten the moment they're spoken. They have no ambition beyond getting through another day, doing roughly what they did yesterday. They walk across the stage of life and leave it exactly as they found it. No mark, no echo, no original thought. Now, some might say, what's wrong with that? Life is stressful enough. Work demands so much of us. The news is overwhelming. If we need more rest, more passive downtime, shouldn't we embrace it? Isn't that good for mental health? Colin Wilson, a brilliant English writer who struggled with depression in his youth, discovered the hard way that the opposite is true. As a teenager, he felt the weight of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The gloom was constant. He saw no point in anything. But Wilson had an astute mind. He refused to accept his misery as inevitable. So he started tracking his moods. What he found changed his life. He noticed that his depressive spells never came out of nowhere. They were always preceded by days, sometimes weeks, of passivity, when he let his mind sit idly. When he didn't challenge himself with interesting tasks, problems to solve, things to learn. The darkness would creep in, fog his perceptions, turn him into a pessimist about everything. But when he threw himself into a project, researching, writing, building something, the gloom lifted. He called this his discovery of the connection between passivity and mental illness. If Wilson is right, if passivity breeds mental illness, then we face a stark choice. One path is easy: waste our leisure on idle pursuits, leave our potential untouched, watch our psychological state slowly corrode. The other path demands effort, create, explore, learn, push our capacities, improve our talents. It means struggle, sacrifice of short-term comfort. But the payoff, mental health, genuine growth, makes it worth every ounce of effort. But let's be honest. Maybe Wilson's discovery only applies to a certain kind of person. Maybe only those with an unusually strong creative urge suffer from passivity. Maybe the rest of the population is perfectly fine sitting back, relaxing, and never striving. Does that mean the struggle to create is a waste of time for most people? Are we just tormenting ourselves by insisting on purpose, on growth, on excellence? Richard Taylor, in his book Restoring Pride, gives a powerful answer. He argues that the effort to produce and create is always worthwhile because it opens the door to something rare and precious. Genuine pride. Now, pride gets a bad reputation. We hear the word and think of arrogance, of narcissism, but Taylor defines pride differently. He calls it the justified love of oneself. Most people who claim to love themselves, Taylor says, are actually covering up insecurity. Their self-love is a shield, not a foundation. They say, I love myself, because they've been told to, but deep down, they feel hollow. True pride, real self-love, has to be earned. It comes from cultivating an extraordinary skill in some domain, from achieving personal excellence that sets you apart. Not for the applause, for the simple fact that you have become something worth loving. This idea offends our modern sensibilities. We've been taught that all people are equal in worth. But Taylor points out the confusion. Equal rights are not the same as equal worth. You can respect every person's dignity while still recognizing that some people have developed their talents further, created more, contributed more. The ancient Greeks understood this instinctively. They saw that while most people are content to fit into the herd, a few dedicate themselves to cultivating uncommon virtue, creating exceptional work, pursuing personal greatness regardless of what others think. And those few, the superior ones, in Taylor's phrase, are the only ones who can truly love themselves without delusion. So the next time you find yourself with leisure, with freedom to direct your own time, before you reach for the remote, before you scroll through a feed, ask yourself, is the comfort of this moment worth what it's costing you? Even if passivity doesn't plant the seeds of depression in you, it's still shrinking your worth. Every hour you spend passively is an hour you're not building the skills, the creations, the excellence that could one day give you justified self-love. Every hour is a choice. You are either growing or decaying. There is no neutral ground. Taylor says something striking. Some people, no doubt, are born to be common. They live out their lives to no significant purpose. But that is relatively rare. Most people have the power to be creative. Some have it in a godlike degree. Yet many, perhaps most, settle for the passing pleasures of our animal side. They consider life successful if they get through it with minimal pain, a few pleasant moments, and the approval of those around them. And all the while, they carry within them the ability to do something no other human being has ever done, something truly original, something that, done well, would justify a love of themselves that no external validation could match. Think about that. Inside you right now, there is a combination of talents, experiences, and perspectives that has never existed before and will never exist again. To let that sit idly, to let it wither from disuse, is a tragedy. Not just for you, for the world. Merely doing what others have done is safe, comfortable. But to do something original, to do it well, whether anyone applauds or not, that is what being human is really about. And it alone justifies the self-love that is pride. So where does that leave us? We've been given an unprecedented gift: time. Time not consumed by survival. But with that gift comes a responsibility. We can use it to sink into passivity, to let our minds rot with idle consumption, to live lives of quiet desperation masked by comfort. Or we can use it to build, to create, to push ourselves toward excellence. Not for anyone else, for the one person who has to live with us every day, ourselves. This isn't about productivity for its own sake. It's not about hustle culture or grinding until you burn out. It's about recognizing that the human mind, left idle, turns against itself. It needs challenge the way a muscle needs resistance. It needs purpose the way lungs need air. The leisure revolution gave us freedom from labor. But freedom from is only half the equation. The other half, the one we rarely consider, is freedom to become something. Freedom to earn a love of ourselves that no one can give us and no one can take away. Wilson found his way out of depression by filling his days with interesting tasks, with problems to solve, with creative work. Taylor reminds us that the reward for that effort is not just mental health, but a form of self-love that is rare and unshakable. So I'll leave you with a challenge. The next time you feel the pull toward passive consumption, the remote, the infinite scroll, the empty chatter, ask yourself a single question. What am I becoming right now? If you're becoming something you can respect, something you can love, then keep going. But if you're becoming nothing, just a passenger in your own life, then maybe it's time to put down the remote and pick up something that demands more from you.